Playoffs have officially started, and boy, am I ecstatic. Not only because the regular season dragged on a little bit longer than I actually wanted to, especially in the last 15
Come
games.
on, bro.
Everyone was
Not too much on the seas, bro.
But more importantly, I believe that this postseason run that we're about to witness will be one of the most important playoffs that we've seen in recent memory. And the reason for this is...
We say that every year. I ain't gonna lie, Lo. You say that every year. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, shit. Wrong shit. You say that every year. And it's fine, because we're in the moment. You know, certain years are legacy years for important players and shit. But, nah, you can't say that every... I mean, you could say that every year, but... It is what it is. It is what it is.
Because of the storylines, questions, and even though it may sound cheesy, some players' legacies being on the line in the upcoming months. And what makes everything even
that's what I'm saying. Like, every year is an important year for someone.
Roughly 6 to 8 teams in the NBA who have genuinely convinced themselves that they have the ability to win the championship this year. But as we all know, there will only be one winner, which means that there will be a handful of disappointments this year, which once more will give us some of the answers that we have been seeking, be able to really give us an understanding of where some of these franchises are heading into in the upcoming years, but more importantly, be a turning point and a defining marker in several players' careers and legacies. First, we have 3 teams who've already cemented their legacy in recent memory with the level of success that they've been able to achieve, so losing or even being underwhelming in the playoffs wouldn't be the end of the world. However, winning a championship certainly wouldn't hurt. And those 3 teams are the Milwaukee Bucks, Golden State Warriors, and the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, in terms of the Warriors and Lakers, you can easily argue they have way more to lose if they are underwhelming in this postseason run, especially since both of these teams are susceptible to early exits in the playoffs. You can easily argue if the Warriors get knocked out in the first round, it would be the end of the Curry, Dre, and Clay era. And then when it comes to Lakers, if they struggle, especially on the side of the bracket where you can avoid the Denver Nuggets, Clippers, and Suns, you can also draw some conclusions.
I don't know if I agree, because when you have a championship contender and your goal is to win a championship and you don't at the very least make the conference finals, it's a disappointing season, man. It's a disappointing season.
In particular to some of the role players in Vanderbilt, Austin Reeves, and D'Angelo Russell, who are all trying to prove their value as they are free agents in the upcoming months, especially D'Lo. If he underperforms, I do believe the Lakers might move in a different direction. And also when it comes to Anthony Davis, who has shown that he has the ability to be the best player on the Lakers, we will definitely get the opportunity to see, does he have the ability to carry that production over into the playoffs? But as we all know, the 3 players who are going to benefit the most are Giannis, Curry, and LeBron.
Yeah.
Giannis at age 28, winning another championship would spearhead him into conversations amongst other all-time great players, in particular players who fall between the range of 10 and 15 or 10 and 20, because I do believe with a resume at 28 that is comparable with Tim Duncan, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James, we will definitely start having some genuine conversations about how great of a player Giannis can be when it's all said and done. And then when it comes to...
Yo, Brian, gonna lie, if Giannis wins a ring and a finals MVP this year, we really need to have conversations of if he is the greatest power forward ever. Because the only conversation at that point is going to be a longevity conversation. I'm going to keep it a bean. That's going to be the only conversation at that point if Giannis wins a ring. This player has done it for a longer period of time, has more rings, X, Y, and Z. But from a skill standpoint, from a peak production standpoint, and even from an accolade standpoint, if Giannis wins this year, we really do need to have some real conversations. I ain't gonna lie.
Curry, I do believe there is still some hesitation to put him in a top 10 list all time from some people. However, winning another championship would almost unanimously deem him a top 10 player of all time, and I believe would open the conversation up for many people to ask themselves, what would he need to do to be unanimously over Magic Johnson as he...
Nothing, bro. Let's stop it, bro. Steph Curry right now is the greatest point guard of all time. Alright? The Magic Johnson Curry conversation, if Curry wins this year, that's just some icing on the cake. The argument is getting silly type shit. That's what it is. But the conversation right now, to me, is dead. To me, it's dead. It's Steph Curry, bro. It's Steph Curry. It's Steph Curry. Cause I don't even think like Magic had that crazy longevity. I think he started his career in 80. That shit ended in what, 92? So the longevity ain't even there. The peak, I mean, Magic's peak is crazy, but I would probably still lean towards Curry. The championships, one more than Curry, whoop-de-fucking-do. Curry already has the Finals MVP. People already know his impact. So at this point, if it's and the defensive gap isn't like, are you really riding like for Magic's defense in this scenario? I don't think you are. Nah, bro. Nah, man.
Greatest point guard to ever live. And then when it comes to LeBron, man, I don't really think that I have to really go into that much detail about this. And I do believe that NBA discourse will be ruined for like 5 to 6 months straight. But I want you to close your eyes and imagine what LeBron James fans will be able to say if the Lakers are able to win a championship this year. LeBron, in year 20, was able to take a 7th seeded team to the NBA Finals and win a championship, which has never been done before, while being the best player on the team. I'm going to be honest with you all, he would be my GOAT if he pulls that off.
Oh, wow.
Up next, we have two teams that are roughly in the middle. Teams that have some questions that need to be answered and certainly have some pressure to make a deep postseason run, if not win a championship, as both of these franchises have the ability to do so. However, if they fail in the process, it really won't be that big of a deal. The two teams that I'm referring to are the Boston Celtics and Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
When it comes to Boston, respectfully, they have been one of the more successful franchises over the past 4 to 5 years. Constantly at the top of the standings, consistently making conference finals appearances, and their success reached new heights last season by making the NBA Finals. And with this level of success, it has really validated every meticulous decision that has been made during the Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum era. And that
I think the risk and the stakes for us is not if you don't win a championship this year, y'all failed. It's if you don't win a championship this year, there's going to be future repercussions for the core of this team. What do we do with Jalen Brown? Specifically, what do we do with Jalen Brown? Do we keep him or do we move forward? I think if we win, it's an easy decision on all parties. We keep Jalen Brown. But if we don't, is it worth it to keep Jalen Brown and, ruin our cap space situation for the rest of the depth of this team? Because again, like I've been saying, depth is important in today's game. Let's not act dumb. Depth is important in today's game. So for a team who's been competing for championships since 2020, right? For a team that's been doing that since 2020, who hasn't done it, assuming we don't get it done this year, do you still continue with that core around Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, or do you experiment with something else? I think that's the stakes for us, and I think a lot of Celtics fans are not ready to let go of this Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown duo. I'm not ready for it, dog. I love this duo. But I think that's the stakes for us winning or not winning a championship this year. And in my opinion, it might even be bigger than just, this team is too talented to not win it this year type shit. You know what I'm saying? But
that's even the decision on not trading Tatum or Brown, even though the Celtics have been tempted on doing so on several different occasions. Which then brings us to this season. Boston once more was tempted to trade one of their young stars in Jalen Brown for a ready-now talent in Kevin Durant. However, the transaction was declined for various reasons, but in the process of doing so, the Celtics as a roster has seen noticeable improvements from the prior year, in particular, the addition of adding Malcolm Brogdon, who has been a heaven sent for this organization and potentially could win Sixth Man of the Year. So
even the Dame conversation, because I know people are saying Dame. I would personally much rather have the 3-guard rotation that we got right now with that depth and that defensive firepower than just have Dame and move on from Jalen. I don't know, bro. I really like the construction of this team. I think we're getting to a point where this team construction is not possible if we pay Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum a supermax, and that's what I'm scared of. And now we're gonna go into future years being capped off from a depth perspective because we want to build around Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. I ain't gonna lie. That's what scares me.
So now with easily one of the most talented rosters in the NBA, and I would argue they are the most talented roster in this association, it does give us the opportunity to see if Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown are good enough to rise to the occasion and lead this team to a championship that they've been slowly building to over the past several years now. And from an individual
over the past half decade,
winning a
bro.
championship would do wonders for Jason Tatum's career, as he would not only unanimously be viewed as a superstar
I'm talking
forward,
my shit
but
if
more
we win.
importantly, Tatum more than likely will never win an MVP in a league that features Luka, Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic.
Yo, bro, not too much,
so
bro.
winning a championship
Yeah,
will
that's true.
cement and potentially separate.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it a bean. It's gonna take a crazy season from Jason Tatum, because we've gotten to a point where just averaging 30 and being the best player on a top record in the league is not enough to win MVP. With the statistics, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid have proven that they can put up. I don't see, like, even it's gonna, like, from a score, because Jesus Christ, I don't think we're ever gonna see a season where Tatum averages 8 to 9 assists. I don't think we're ever gonna see a season where Tatum is gonna average 10 plus rebounds. I don't think we're ever gonna see a season where he does all of that. Like a 39-8 season. You know what I'm saying? So if he wants to be in these MVP conversations, it's gonna have to be on some 2019 Harden shit, where he's putting up 37 a game and leading his team to one of the top records in the league, which I personally don't see, and I honestly don't even want to see. I'd much rather him average 30 on a much more well-rounded team than see that. So, I'm just saying.
Himself from a lot of his peers. And then when it comes to Jalen Brown, winning a championship will immortalize who he is as a player, as second options tend to be forgotten, or at least forgotten how good they were throughout their prime, if they aren't able to achieve that level of success or put up all-time great numbers. However, if the Celtics fail to win a championship or don't even make it out of the finals, and God forbid they lose in the second round to the Philadelphia 76ers, well, the doubters of Tatum and Brown duo being good enough to win a championship might have been onto something. And it would be even worse if the Suns went on to win a championship this season with Kevin Durant leading them to that type of success, as the Celtics had the opportunity to trade Jalen Brown for Kevin Durant during the offseason.
Yo, bro, not too much, bro. Not too much, bro.
That big of a deal is because both Tatum and Brown are still fairly young. They have several more opportunities to prove themselves as a duo, and I don't believe that people should overreact, but I do know that's how the NBA community kind of
I think they're proven, though. That's the thing. I think they're proven.
And then finally, we have the Denver Nuggets, which honestly is just a bunch of pressure being put on Jokic because there is a subsection of the NBA community who just doesn't like him. Over the past 2 to 3 years, the 6'11" big man has seen a meteoric rise to NBA stardom, as the Joker has put up impressive numbers, inserting himself in conversations to be an all-time great offensive player, which has all culminated into 2 league MVP awards. And even this season, you can easily make the argument that he should walk away with those honors once more. And because of the level of praise and admiration that Jokic has received, it has now breeded a subsection in the NBA community who's decided to give that a lot of pushback. The reason being is because even though they may believe that Jokic is a really great player, they do not believe that he should receive 2 to 3 MVPs, all of which in a row, because he is not of that status of all-time great players. So that's one subsection of criticism for Jokic. Now, in defense of Jokic, there's another subsection of the NBA community that supports the claims that he is an all-time great performer, and to support that claim, those people tend to lean heavy on advanced analytics, which then of course upsets another subsection of NBA fandom, because there are certainly a bunch of people who are quote-unquote purists or traditionalists who do not like using advanced analytics, or at least not heavily relying on them to determine how great a player is. And then you have another section of the NBA community, I like to call them normal fans, who just want to see Jokic as one of the best players in the NBA compete for a deep postseason run and eventually a championship because, of course, if you are a league MVP at the top of the conference on a healthy roster, those expectations should naturally be placed upon those type of players. And an even bigger question that I do believe a lot of people want to know the answer to, and I do believe this is a very legitimate criticism to Jokic, especially since he's a censor, and that is, will Jokic's inabilities on the defensive side of the floor turn out to be a detriment to the Denver Nuggets, regardless of how excellent that he can be on the offensive side? But as a normal fan, the reason why it's not going to be that big of a deal if Jokic is not able to lead this team to a championship this year or even a deep postseason run is because Jokic and this core are all still relatively young. They have more time, and I don't believe the Western Conference is going to become significantly more competitive anytime soon. But I will admit that this year is probably the best opportunity to take advantage of a Western Conference that is fairly wide open.
I think a part of it too is the management and the players of the Denver Nuggets not saying shit. I think the reason why there's more pressure on a team like the Sixers is because this is a team that has talked their shit. Embiid, he's been robbed 2 MVPs in a row. And Embiid is on podcasts talking about, I did get robbed 2 in a row. You know what I'm saying? I think that plays a factor into it. Like, Jokic doesn't say anything. You know, he's not coming up here saying, I'm the best player in the league. I ain't gonna lie, it's not even on some like John Morant shit. We're not looking at anyone in the West. We're looking at the Celtics. It's not even that type of shit. And when you don't do those things, that takes away from pressure that teams normally do have. Because teams, players who have arguably are in the conversations for winning 3 MVPs in a row, players who are on teams as talented as Denver usually talk a lot of shit. So,
and then finally, we have 3 franchises who honestly have given themselves little to no wiggle room to compete for a championship, but certainly has to make a deep postseason run. And what makes these 3 teams interesting is that they've all put themselves in a situation where their playoff run could end much earlier than expected. Those 3 teams are the Los Angeles Clippers, Phoenix Suns, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Hey here, Future Low. And gotta cut out the Clipper part of this video because, Kawhi has a bum knee and yet again it is aggravating him. So he's going to be in and out of the lineup for most of this postseason run if the Clippers are able to make it out the first round. Which sucks because I was going to talk about how this is year 4 of the PG and Kawhi experiment, talk about how this team has the second highest payroll, talk about how this team still is incomplete from a roster perspective, and of course the cherry on top of everything would have been the Russell Westbrook angle. Does he have the ability to prove that he can be a positive for a team that is attempting to compete for a championship? Because you could very well argue that this is his last opportunity. But again, can't talk about it because this is a cursed franchise and Kawhi has a bum knee. So let's just talk about the Suns and Sixers.
No. We can talk about it, bro. We can talk about it. It's failed. The Paul George Kawhi experiment, especially if they move on from this core, has failed. It's failed. And the only reason Lowe doesn't want to talk about it is because they're going to get bounced out in the first round. Why? Because of injuries to their best players once again. They've invested a bunch of assets to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and these 2 players have been either injury prone in their first 4 years or in their 4 years, or have choked, aka the 2020 playoffs versus the Denver Nuggets. That's what it is, bruh. That's what it is. So we can't shy away from these conversations just because they're going to get bounced out in the first round and because of that, it was because of injury. No, this is what the Clippers are. This is the problem with the Clippers. Them getting bounced out in the first round, as unfortunate as it is, says a lot about this franchise, where they're at, and the decisions that they made. It does, bro. It does. It does, bro. It does.
First, we have the Suns, and boy, I don't even know where to begin. From a front office perspective, this is an organization that identified that Devin Booker might not be good enough to be the best player on the championship roster, so they leveraged their depth and defense to go after win-now talent in Kevin Durant. The problem, though, is that KD, ever since he's been recovering from that Achilles injury, has been dealing with nagging injuries that has kept him sidelined for most of the last 3 to 4 years now. And because of that, I do believe it's safe to assume that the window of opportunity to win a championship for this team is much more smaller than I believe a lot of people want to admit. And so, taking advantage of a fairly wide open Western
It's
Conference
pretty much
is
this
certainly
year and
going to
next
be
year, bro.
important
I
this
ain't gonna
season.
lie.
Speaking of Kevin Durant,
CP3's too
with
old.
him, man, there's a medley of things to talk about. A, the looming belief that Kevin Durant doesn't have the ability to lead a team to a championship, especially since he's failed miserably since he left the Golden State Warriors out in Brooklyn. Also, speaking upon failures, last year was by far the worst postseason performance I've ever seen from Kevin Durant, so obviously attempting to bounce back from that would be great to see. But again, more importantly, Kevin Durant is older, dealing with ongoing injuries, and so it definitely feels like the window of opportunity for him is closing quicker than I think a lot of people are expecting. And speaking of the window of opportunity closing, boy, this might be the last chance for Chris Paul. I hate watching Chris Paul play basketball now because it's really hard for me to accept that that's the type of player that he is. He's a defensive liability. He's afraid to shoot three-pointers, especially when players are closing out on him. He doesn't have the ability to get to the basket whatsoever. Fun fact, throughout the entire regular season, Chris Paul only attempted 29 shots in the restricted area.
Damn.
So when I see CP3 at this stage of his career, though it's understandable, it's really hard to accept the fact that this is the player that he is, especially since he hasn't won a championship yet. But I guess it is a good opportunity that he has at least one more opportunity to win a championship. But if the Suns do fail to win a championship and Chris Paul in the process looks really bad, I do believe that the front office is going to move in a different direction at the point guard position. And speaking of moving in a different direction, I also believe that DeAndre Ayton could be on the chopping block as well. But like I said earlier, the reason why all this is very interesting is that even though, yes, there is a possibility that this team could win a championship, it's also very reasonable to believe that the Suns won't even make it out of the second round, as they more than likely will have to match up with a Denver Nuggets team that has way more chemistry and continuity built up with one another than the Phoenix Suns, which is something that I've seen them struggle with consistently.
Ayton is a bum. That's crazy.
Trade. And then finally, we have the Philadelphia.
I think the Sixers have the most pressure,
in my
bro.
opinion,
They have the most pressure.
The most pressure in this year's postseason run. And it is blowing me away how so many people in the NBA community are letting this team off the hook. Of course, we have the Doc Rivers angle. One of the most underwhelming coaches in the NBA post-2010.
Thank you.
If you look at his resume and contrast to the amount of talent that he's had the ability to coach, once more, completely underwhelming. He definitely will receive a lot of scrutiny if this team underperforms. Then we have the James Harden angle, who has been identified as a playoff choker or someone who consistently underperforms in a postseason, and his defenders has given him the excuse that he's had to consistently carry an unfair amount of offensive load that has altered his ability to be effective in the postseason. However, that excuse is now thrown out the window, as now he has the privilege to play alongside Joel Embiid, and Embiid more than likely will carry a large portion of the offensive load. So we should be able to see a more consistent version of Harden throughout this postseason run. Also, Harden is getting up there in age. I do believe the window of opportunity for him is closing quicker than I think a lot of people are willing to admit. But a much bigger picture that I want people to really understand when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers is that next month marks the 10-year anniversary of the Sixers starting off the process by hiring Sam Hinkie. And the whole premise of the process is that the Sixers are supposed to purposely lose games, tank in order to receive a high draft pick, and through that process draft the superstar caliber player that is necessary for a team to win a championship. And that player would end up being Joel Embiid, who so far in his career has not been able to lead the Sixers beyond a second round,
bruh.
And it seems like this year they might not be able to make it to the conference finals once more, as the Sixers are pegged to face the Boston Celtics in the second round.
Yeah.
So overcoming the Boston Celtics and making their first conference finals appearance since the early 2000s will certainly answer a lot of questions for us. But in my opinion, I think Boston is a better team. So realistically speaking, there's a very real possibility that the Sixers will once more fail to make a deep postseason run. And if the Sixers fail in this process, I do believe that will leave some irreparable damage done to the legacy of Doc Rivers, James Harden, and especially Joel Embiid. And honestly, I have way more to say about this, but I don't want to spoil a potential video down the road. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I agree. The Sixers have the most pressure. All right. The Sixers have the most pressure And I ain't gonna lie, when the team with the most pressure in the league has Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Doc Rivers, I'd be scared. That's all I'm gonna say. I'd be fucking scared if I was a Sixers fan. Didn't even talk about Tobias Harris. You know what I'm saying? Didn't even talk about Tobias Harris. But hey, man, listen, man. Shout out to everyone in the building. We got 241 in the building. Shout out to y'all, man. Hey, let me do it one more time. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all.